AITA for considering ending my relationship because my partner's kids clearly don't like me or want me around? The last straw was when his youngest daughter looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Why don't you just leave? Nobody here likes you." She didn't scream it. She didn't say it out of anger. She said it calmly, almost like she was telling me the weather. And my partner, her father, was standing right there, frozen, not defending me, not correcting her, just silent. I stood there holding the plate of food I had just cooked for the whole family, my hands shaking so bad I thought I'd drop it. His son laughed under his breath, his older daughter rolled her eyes, and in that moment, I felt like a stranger in the house I'd been trying so hard to belong in. That was when the thought hit me like a punch. I don't think I can keep doing this. I don't think I can stay. But then, as I stared at their faces, so sure of themselves, so united in their dislike of me, I realized the question wasn't just whether I could stay. The question was whether I even wanted to fight for a place in a family that clearly didn't want me there. And yet, the part that keeps me awake at night is this. If I leave him, it won't just be because of the kids. It'll be because of him, too. Because he let them treat me this way, over and over, until my heart broke. That moment was the breaking point. But to explain how we got there, I have to go back. When I first met my partner, things felt perfect. He was charming, kind, and honest about his situation. He had 3 kids from his previous marriage, and they were the center of his life. I respected that. I even admired it. I thought, if he can love them that much, maybe one day he can love me the same way. At first, I didn't meet the kids. He wanted to take it slow, which I understood. We dated quietly for months, going out to dinners, weekend trips, late-night drives where it was just the 2 of us. Those months were pure happiness. But then came the introduction. I was nervous, but excited. I baked cookies, wore my best approachable but not trying too hard outfit, and walked into his house ready to make the best impression of my life. The kids, though, had other plans. The moment I stepped in, his oldest daughter, she's 15, barely looked up from her phone. His son, 12, muttered something I couldn't catch, but it made the younger one giggle. And the youngest just stared at me with this coldness that felt wrong for a child her age. I told myself it was just nerves, that they'd warm up. Kids need time, right? But days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and it only got worse. Every time I tried, whether it was cooking for them, taking them to the park, helping with homework, they pushed back harder. They refused to eat what I made, told me I was trying too hard, and made jokes behind my back that weren't even whispered. The worst part? My partner always brushed it off. "They just need time," he'd say. "Don't take it personally." But how could I? One night, his son left a note on the fridge. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't loud. It just said, in messy handwriting, "We already have a mom. Stop trying." I cried in the bathroom that night while he slept soundly in bed. And still, I stayed. I told myself love meant patience, that one day if I kept showing up, they'd see I wasn't trying to replace anyone. I just wanted to belong. But that moment at the dinner table, with his youngest telling me flat out that nobody liked me, shattered everything. Because when I looked up for him for support, for him to step in, to tell his kids that respect mattered, he just stared at his plate, silent. That silence said more than words ever could. And now, here I am, asking myself the question that feels like a betrayal just for thinking it. AITA for considering ending my relationship because my partner's kids clearly don't like me or want me around? But the truth is, it's not just about them anymore. It's about me, and the breaking point I never thought I'd reach. What happened after that dinner only made the question heavier. After the dinner table incident, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed with my back turned to him, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. He reached out once, put his hand on my shoulder like he wanted to comfort me, but he didn't say anything. Eventually, his hand slipped away, and I heard him roll over and fall asleep like nothing had happened. The next morning, I couldn't hold it in anymore. As soon as the kids left for school, I said, "We need to talk." He sighed like he already knew where the conversation was going, but instead of apologizing, instead of taking my side, he leaned against the counter with his coffee and said, "They're just kids. You can't take what they say so seriously." Just kids. That phrase felt like a slap. Kids or not, they were old enough to know right from wrong. Old enough to understand that telling someone they weren't wanted wasn't just kid talk. And he was old enough to know by staying silent, he was choosing a side. And it wasn't mine. I told him exactly how it felt. I told him that his silence hurt me more than their words. And you know what he said? "I can't force them to like you. That's not how this works." But here's the thing. He wasn't even trying. That week, the distance between us grew thicker. At night, we went to bed without touching. In the mornings, our conversations were clipped and short. I could feel the resentment building inside me like a pressure cooker, and it scared me. Then something happened that pushed me even further to the edge. I'd left my laptop on the kitchen counter while I ran to the store. When I came back, I found his son sitting in front of it, smirking. My screen was open, my private messages pulled up. He looked at me and said, "Are you writing about us?" before shutting the laptop with a grin and running upstairs. I froze. My stomach dropped. Because yes, I had been writing, journaling, venting, trying to process what I was feeling. And the idea that a child, his child, had been snooping through my personal thoughts made me feel violated in my own space. When I told him, "Do you know what he did?" He laughed. He actually laughed and said, "He's curious, that's all. Don't make a big deal about it." That was the moment I realized I wasn't just unwanted by the kids. I was unprotected by him. And yet, despite everything, I stayed. Because I loved him. Because I kept clinging to the memory of the early days, before the kids, when it felt like we were unstoppable. I told myself maybe, just maybe, things could still turn around. But the cracks only got deeper. A week later, his oldest daughter hosted a sleepover. I'd made popcorn for them, trying one more time to bridge the gap. But as I set the bowl down, I heard one of her friends whisper, "Is that the stepmom wannabe?" And everyone burst out laughing, including his daughter. I felt my face burn, but I forced a smile, put the bowl down, and walked away. And as I stood alone in the kitchen, hearing them laugh at me from the other room, a single thought echoed in my head louder than all of it. Maybe I'm not just thinking about leaving anymore. Maybe I need to. But I didn't know then that the real breaking point hadn't even arrived yet. It came the very next weekend, at a family outing that turned into something I'll never forget. That weekend, he suggested we all go out together. "It'll be good for everyone," he said, smiling like he believed it. I wasn't convinced, but I wanted to try. A part of me thought maybe if we were outside the house, away from the tension of their walls and routines, things could be different. We went to an amusement park. Crowds, music, laughter, the kind of place where families are supposed to bond. I told myself, okay, this is my chance. Be patient. Be positive. Don't let the past weigh this down. At first, it seemed almost normal. His youngest held his hand, the older two ran ahead, and I walked beside him, trying to match his energy. But by the third ride, the cracks showed again. We were in line for the Ferris wheel. His son turned to him and said, loud enough for me and the strangers around us to hear, "Do we really have to let her come in the cart with us? Can't she sit alone?" People stared. My face burned. My partner chuckled awkwardly and muttered something like, "That's not nice." But he didn't correct him. He didn't defend me. And then the youngest piped up, "Yeah, Daddy, she ruins everything." The words hit me harder than I expected. Ruins everything. Said by a 9-year-old. Said so easily like it was a fact. I wanted to leave right then. But I didn't. I got in that Ferris wheel cart, sat pressed against the cold metal, while his kids huddled around him, laughing, pointing at things below, acting like I wasn't even there. The ride felt like forever. When we finally got off, I pulled him aside. My voice was shaking. I told him, "This isn't working. They don't just dislike me, they hate me, and you're letting them." Instead of hearing me, instead of finally seeing how much it hurt, he looked at me with this tired expression and said, "Why do you always have to make everything about you?" That moment, I swear, it felt like my chest caved in. Because wasn't this about me? Wasn't it about us? How could he not see that? But it got worse. Later that afternoon, while we were eating lunch at a picnic table, his oldest daughter snapped a picture of me on her phone. She thought I didn't notice, but I did. She showed her siblings, and they all burst out laughing. I asked, gently, "Can I see what you're laughing at?" She smirked and said, "Nope." Then, right in front of me, she typed something into her phone and hit send. My gut told me she had sent it to someone to make fun of me. And my partner? He shrugged and said, "They're teenagers. You're reading too much into it." But when I got home that night and opened my social media, I found out exactly what she had done. There it was, a picture of me, posted on her private story with the caption, "Look at this wannabe. Cringe." I wasn't just being mocked inside the house anymore. I was being mocked publicly. And that was the moment the line finally blurred for me. Was this about the kids, or was this about him? Because by staying silent, by excusing them over and over, wasn't he showing me exactly how little he valued me? That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, and the thought that had been haunting me for weeks came roaring back. I think I have to leave. But before I could even decide, something happened the next morning that forced the issue faster than I was ready for. The morning after the amusement park, I came downstairs to find the kids already at the kitchen table. They went silent the moment I entered, like I'd interrupted a secret meeting. His son whispered something under his breath, and the youngest burst out laughing. I ignored it. I was too tired, too drained. I poured myself some coffee and tried to focus on the sound of the machine humming instead of their whispers. Then his oldest daughter slid her phone across the table toward me. On the screen was the photo she'd posted the night before, the one with the cruel caption. But this time, she'd added something new, a poll. 2 options under my picture. Should she leave? Should she stay? The numbers next to should she leave were climbing higher and higher. I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I thought it would break through. My hands shook as I pushed the phone back toward her. I asked, "Why would you do this?" My voice was barely a whisper. She just smirked and said, "Everyone already knows the answer." That was the moment I broke. All the patience, all the forced smiles, all the nights crying silently in the bathroom, it all came crashing down. I stormed into the bedroom where my partner was still half asleep. I threw the phone on the bed and demanded, "Do you see this? Do you finally see what they're doing to me?" He rubbed his eyes, looked at the screen, and then he sighed. Just sighed like I was some burden he had to deal with. He said, "They're kids. You're overreacting." Something inside me snapped. No, they're not just kids. They're cruel. They're bullying me in my own home. And you, my voice cracked. You let them. You stand there and let them tear me apart piece by piece while you do nothing. For the first time, he raised his voice. "What do you want me to do? Yell at them? Force them to love you? That's not how it works." I was shaking. "I don't want you to force them to love me. I just want you to respect me enough to defend me, to stand up for me, to show me I matter to you as much as they do." Silence. He didn't say anything. He didn't move. He just stared at me like I was asking for too much. And in that silence, I felt something die inside me. Because wasn't this about me? Wasn't it about us? How could he not see that? I grabbed my bag. I don't even remember packing it. I just remember the sound of the zipper closing, the weight of it on my shoulder, and the kids' eyes watching from the hallway as I walked past them. He asked, "Where are you going?" His voice was flat. I turned to him, tears streaming down my face, and whispered, "Somewhere I'm wanted." Then I walked out. But what happened next, the fallout after I left, was darker than anything I'd expected. When I walked out of that house, I thought I was choosing peace. I thought I was saving myself from more humiliation, more silence, more indifference. But instead, I walked straight into the storm I'd been trying so hard to avoid. I stayed at a friend's apartment that first night. I turned my phone off because I didn't want to see his name. I didn't want to see messages that would either be cruel or, worse, coldly casual, as if none of it mattered. When I finally turned my phone back on the next morning, I had dozens of missed calls and texts. But they weren't from him. They were from unknown numbers, social media notifications, even an email. The kids had posted about me. Again. Only this time, it wasn't just a private story. It was everywhere. Screenshots of my journals that his son had snooped through, pictures of me at family dinners, at the park, even sitting in the car, all captioned with cruel words. Words like pathetic, desperate, homewrecker. I scrolled, my hands shaking, and realized they weren't just mocking me anymore. They were trying to destroy me. And then I saw it. One of the posts wasn't from them. It was from him, my partner. The man I had loved, the man I had defended to everyone who doubted him. He'd shared one of their photos of me with the caption, "Maybe it's for the best." That single sentence shattered me because it told the truth I'd been refusing to see. He didn't care if I stayed or left. He didn't care if I was mocked, humiliated, or erased. To him, I was already gone. I dropped the phone. I couldn't breathe. My friend picked it up, saw what I had seen, and asked if I wanted her to call him, to confront him, to do something. But I just shook my head. What was there to say? He had already chosen. I cried until my body ached, and in those tears, the final clarity came. It wasn't the kids who had ended us. It was him. His silence, his excuses, his refusal to stand by me, it was him all along. The kids had only been the mirror, reflecting the truth he was too cowardly to say out loud. That night, I packed my things for good. I blocked his number, I deleted their faces from my phone, and for the first time in months, I felt a strange kind of calm. Because the truth was brutal, yes, but it was also freeing. I was done being unwanted. Or at least, I thought I was, until something happened weeks later that dragged me back into their orbit in a way I could never have prepared for. A few weeks later, I was finally starting to feel like myself again. New apartment, new routine, silence that belonged only to me. Then one night, I got a message from an unknown number. Just one line. "They still talk about you every day." Attached was a photo. Me, standing at the grocery store, taken from behind. I hadn't seen them. I hadn't even noticed anyone watching. My stomach turned to ice, because it wasn't just about not being wanted anymore. It was about being followed.